You're listening to Tonebender's Sound Design Podcast, presented by Sound Ideas. This is the show where we talk with the sonic artists behind our favorite films, games, and series. The NAB Show is a major gathering for professionals across media, post-production, and broadcasting. In conjunction with the event, Sound Ideas is offering a limited-time NAB sale with 50% off its catalog of professional sound effects libraries. But you don't have to go to NAB to take advantage of this promotion. It's available to everyone right now. To learn more and explore the sale, go to sound-ideas.com. Hey everyone, my name is Tim Muirhead, and I will be your host today on Tonebender's Sound Design Podcast. Thanks so much for listening in today. I have a couple quick announcements before we get into the interview with Andrew and Sunny about their surprisingly complicated work on the super fun film, The Housemaid. First up, I want to announce that Tonebenders will be part of the upcoming AirCon 26 conference being put on by Airwiggles. I'll be doing a live episode as part of this entirely free and online gathering of sound people. The episode will be with the sound team behind Netflix One Piece series, and I'm excited to be talking to them about the super fun audio challenges in this show. So that's your homework for now. Make sure you check out One Piece ahead of the talk, and then go to aircon26.com at 4:45 Eastern, 1:45 Pacific, or 9:45 British Standard on Friday, May 22nd. You can watch along and even ask them some questions yourselves. I will also be moderating a separate panel earlier that day about sound guilds and why you should think about joining them. So please head to Airwiggles and get these on your calendar now. They are entirely free and it's entirely online. So no matter where in the world you live, you can join in the fun. Finally, Tonebenders now has a newsletter that you can sign up to find out about upcoming events, recent episodes, and some behind-the-scenes stories. It's only sent out once a month, so it won't tax your inbox, and it's really helpful for the growth of Tonebenders. So please, take a moment and sign up. There's a link at the bottom of this episode's description in your podcast app. Okay, here we go. Let's get to the interview with the sound team from The Housemaid. Hello and welcome to Tonebenders. My name's Tim Muirhead, and I'm sitting in the beautiful Stage 1 of the Glen Film Center in Hollywood, California. I'm excited to talk today with the supervising sound editors from the recent hit film, The Housemaid. The film became a hit this holiday season, earning nearly $400 million in its theatrical run, which is no small feat for a film that doesn't have any superheroes in it. There's no space battles in it. There's no reenactments of famous war battles. This is a psychological thriller with strong word of mouth. That's what built people going to see it and flocking to the theaters. So joining me today are supervising sound editors. First up, we have Andrew DeCristofaro. It's lovely to meet you today, Andrew.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for coming down to Glen for this talk.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
And this is the room that this film was actually mixed in,
That's right.
Yeah, so we'll get into that in a minute. Also with me is Darren Sunny Warkentine. Welcome to Tonebender, Sunny. I've always wanted to talk to you. I'm so glad that we get to talk today.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
So before we get into the specifics of The Housemaid, I'd like to inquire about how you two kind of started working together, because if one was to go on each of your IMDb pages, they are very similar. So you have obviously worked together a lot, and I'm maybe wondering if what brought you two together and what makes your relationship work.
You want to take it, or you want me to?
Sure. Well, I mean, look, Andrew's been doing this for longer than I have.
Go ahead, you can say it. I'm really old.
He has, a ton of experience, and I worked at a small house called POP Sound in Santa Monica, where we did a bunch of independent films. I was one of those guys that worked in a place where you got to do everything, ADR, all that kind of stuff, and it was a non-union house.
Shh. Was it supposed to be? I don't remember.
Yeah, right. I started getting into more independent films and doing sound supervision and sound design and editing and all that kind of stuff for those films. Sound Deluxe happened to be a part of under our umbrella, I guess you could say. I don't know if there was 4MC or one of those companies had that. And so I started working with Kelly Oxford was one of the individuals who knew Andrew, and I was kind of doing some independent stuff with Kelly and got to know Lon Bender, and then somehow through probably Kelly.
Probably. I think it was Kelly.
Got to know Andrew.
It's so weird to hear you call me Andrew. Nobody at work calls me Andrew. It's Drew, but
Drew, okay.
Yeah, but So to hear Sonny say that, I'm looking at him and go, who the hell is he talking about?
That's just like to be like him calling me Darren. We don't do that.
Yeah.
Call me Sonny.
Yeah.
So through Kim Jimenez and I got to meet Andrew and Becky Sullivan and Kelly and kind of, was editing Foley on these and trying to work my way into the union. Basically kind of got in with you guys in that capacity. I think the first thing I did with you guys was Spy,
Right.
another Paul Feig movie.
Mhm.
I was cutting Foley on it as a union, one of the first union kind of gigs. And I got over to Sound Deluxe, kind of transferred over. Actually,
Great timing.
Great timing.
He was so excited, I remember, because he was like, I'm here, I'm at Sound Deluxe, I'm at the big facility where we do all the big movies. And then what, like 3 weeks later, we got out of business?
3 weeks after that, the famous plug was pulled and we were kind of all standing around, including myself, going, oh my gosh, I just went from this guaranteed, 40-hour-a-week job to union work and trying to figure out where the heck I'm going to go. And so Drew and Becky and Kelly were all super nice about, they were looking for places to go.
At that point, Becky and I, in particular, along with Kelly and a team, had been asked to start up Universal's sound editorial company again. So we knew where we were headed. And there was another group that was going to start Formosa. And we told Sonny, you're welcome to come with us, because our philosophy, Becky's and mine in particular, was always about trying to help. I'd always wanted to, kind of share credits and help people rise up through their careers. So that's what we were going to do. And we told Sonny our philosophy in life. And I think it seemed to resonate with him. And he's just a great guy, and I don't know how we got into.
There was an opportunity, I think, on the first Daddy's Home.
To start cutting dialogue?
I was cutting dialogue. I did, some stuff for Becky and for Kelly and stuff at Universal, but and that's when I really started working with Drew and working my way through the ranks, essentially, cutting Foley, doing dialogue, all those kind of things. And I think that my personality and Drew's personality and we just kind of clicked and we had a good time together. And we were this small little group at Universal starting this thing that they'd never had before. And so it was all very exciting for me because I'd never worked on, big union films and working with someone like Drew that's, done all these movies, and I think as we kind of went on, Becky kind of started doing a few things on her own. And I was cutting dialogue for Drew. And I think on the first Daddy's Home, I'd kind of built a relationship with the director and picture editor there. And Drew kind of asked me if I wanted to co-supervise with him, essentially, or thought that I should have that credit, which was amazing because I had those supervising credits on non-union films before, but nothing, quite as big as Daddy's Home, which Daddy's Home, that movie made $100 million in the box office, you know. So that's kind of where our relationship started. And then we just kind of weaved in and out throughout, the last,
it just works really well.
Years,
we have a good flow. We have a good bounce off each other and ideas, and just, if I'm not around, Sonny's there, and vice versa. I mean, we can step in for each other. Well, I can't do everything Sonny can do, but he can do everything I can do. But yeah, no, I mean, it's just been a good relationship.
And how do you divide up the supervising sound editor?
It's kind of just a shared, and depending on, it just depends on.
Yeah, I mean,
each one's different, we just divvy up. Whatever is between us, we'll divvy it up between us somehow. One of us puts on the cleaning hat, and one puts on the cutting hat for dialogue, let's say, or, just so we can attack things and get it done to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, and talking with the editors and that we bring on and the philosophy of what we expectation of the film is and what the vision is. We talk about it and really bounce ideas off of each other.
And Sonny usually will lead the dialogue side of things more, and I'll participate in it, but then I'll start mostly be focused on effects side. But we're both interchangeable, in terms of communication and who they're talking to, and you get two brains for one,
Yeah.
which almost makes a complete brain between us.
So director Paul Feig, he's started kind of directing comedies for the most part.
Yep.
Then he kind of moved into action comedies like we mentioned earlier, Heat. And now he seems to be in like a thriller mode.
Yeah, the first one was A Simple Favor. Yeah.
Part 1, yeah.
Yeah, and then Simple Favor 2, obviously. And in fact, this one, Housemaid, came up while we were in this room, I think, mixing the sequel, Simple Favor 2. And it kind of just came up, and Paul had no time to prep, maybe a month. I don't know. I mean, he was just like mixing this film and prepping that film, and only had like 30 days to
It's
shoot.
very, very short shoot. When you look at the film, most of it takes place in that house.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think an overly complicated from a location standpoint. And I don't know how much the expectation was of that.
I don't know, but I don't know what your question was. We kind of delved into something else.
Perfect.
But okay.
I'm not worried about that.
Okay, I just wasn't sure.
We'll see where we go.
We'll see where we go. Okay, cool. I wasn't sure because, I mean, Paul did an amazing job trying to make a small location feel interesting and, claustrophobic at times and, and beautiful and scary and tension. And, I mean, I was blown away at what he did in such a short period of time. All of them, the actors, everybody just nailed it. So.
And you can see, I mean, you did A Simple Favor. He that thriller aspect of Paul, he's kind of always had it, right? I mean, it feels like he's always got this kind of quirky thing. But
yeah, I felt like, I remember watching Simple Favor the first time in the cutting room, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is, because it was so different. That to me was his first jump away, and I thought he did such a masterful job of, the misdirection and so forth, and just the exploration for the audience of like, where is this leading me and so forth. I thought, for me, Housemaid was so much fun. Oh my God, so much fun, because I had never read the book, so I had no idea what we were getting into. But it was a great ride, and a great ride to watch with an audience. I kept telling people, watch it with an audience because it's so much fun.
Yeah,
like they were screaming and enjoying themselves, and
people yelling at the screen, and
don't do that.
Yeah, it was one of those experiences which we've had on other films as well, but it really captivated audiences, and Paul really pushed for that, and was like very much like, look, this is a fun ride, come and
Right.
experience it with people in a theater,
Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference seeing it in a theater with with an audience. It's just it feels like a
It just was
it's
fun.
just a ride.
It's hard to say it's fun because it's it's a little violent and
It
everything
is
else.
fun though.
But
That's
it is
what
fun.
makes it so
I know.
great.
It is fun.
It's
I know.
super fun. I'm Canadian, and Canadians are normally a more reserved people. We don't normally talk to the screen at theaters.
Okay, fair enough.
I've seen movies in New York where everyone's yelling at the screen. That doesn't normally happen in Canada. In the screening I was at for this film, I'm going to try and speak kind of generally, not to give away a plot point because this is near the end of the movie, but someone goes to the house and is going to open a door thinking someone else is behind the door.
Right.
And about 30 seconds before that happens, everyone in the theater realizes what is about to happen. And everybody in the theater was like, no. Like, you couldn't help but go, oh my God, I know what is about to happen. This is so bad. And like that was super fun in a theater. And
That's awesome.
it's not very often that you get that experience in theater.
Yeah.
And
agreed.
especially for a movie, like there are Marvel moments where that happens when Captain America picks up the hammer or whatever. But that is kind of an institutional knowledge of years of comic books and 20 movies leading up to that moment. For this to just be a thing that you just sit down and an hour later you're that invested in it is quite unusual.
Yeah.
And
granted.
It was really fun to experience.
I mean,
that.
it's all filmic language, and I mean, and Paul knows the craft, and so does Brent White, his film editor. They've been a team together for years and years, knowing the language, how to use it, and create those moments, because that's still that anticipation, and it's letting the audience know something that the character doesn't. So the audience is ahead of the character and knows what's happening, and that's what gives you that angst, that and it's knowing that Paul and Brent know their craft.
Well, speaking of people who've worked together for a long time, you have worked with Paul for a long time.
Yep, we have. I worked with Paul. Yeah, I think it was The Heat. Yeah, I think it was The Heat. Prior to that, he had done Bridesmaids, I think was the one just prior to that. And we've worked with him ever since on The Heat. He did a couple of films in the UK. He moved there for a while. And so he posted, I don't know, 2 or 3 out there. But since he's been back, knock on wood, stay with us, Paul. Yeah, he seems to be back, and we all have a good understanding, and a good language with each other, and kind of knows what each other wants, and
He's such a pleasure to work
God,
for.
yeah, he and Brent together. Are
Both of those. They're we have a lot of fun on stage. He's all about collaboration. He's just a genuine person too, which is really nice.
Yeah.
He appreciates what we do for him, and so he allows us to try things and to really help the film sonically.
But he's one of those directors that knows exactly what he wants too. So like he'll let us try it, but if it's not working, he goes, nope. Yeah, and it will say, well, this is and he goes, okay, I hear it, that's great, but it's not as good as this. We're like, okay. Yeah, it's very helpful to us because Paul, he knows what he wants, he knows when it's working, and he just knows the craft really, really well. And like, Sonny said, he's a great guy. Terrible dresser, Paul. Terrible dresser. But he makes a mean martini, and you should try his gin.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got the best gin around. Yeah, he's a joy to be with. So we're really fortunate that we get to work with him.
If you are a regular listener to Tonebenders, you've heard me mention the O-Mini miniature omnidirectional microphones from Chris Trevino. I've talked about how I love the neutral frequency response and how they are ultrasonic capable, allowing me to really bend and shape and have a lot of fun with my recordings in post-production. Each pair of mics is handmade by Chris Trevino, a practicing field recordist and a really engaged member of the sound community. He uses high-quality components and puts a lot of work into making and testing each mic to ensure they live up to his own high standards. The O-Minis are available in both XLR and 1/8-inch versions to accommodate any kind of recorder you might have. Between their compact form and robust build quality, they work great with a variety of workflows, from everyday carry recording kits to expeditions where every gram counts and you want to keep your pack weight light. Maybe my favorite thing about both versions of the O-Minis is the price. They are extremely affordable. At $130 American for the plug-in power stereo pairs and $150 for XLR pairs, they offer a lot of value. I suggest you give them a try. At this price point, it is a no-brainer. To learn more, head to chrisatrevino.com/store or click on the link in the description of this episode in your podcast app. This is kind of a tricky question to ask. There's lots of directors that have great success, and then on their next film, they go and get entirely new teams.
Yes.
So I'm always fascinated when someone like Paul sticks with his people. Do you think that that's because that's just who he is, or did you guys do something that made him on your side, or like, do you know why that is? It's kind of a tricky question.
That's a good question. Hopefully it's because we did our job well and he also enjoyed hanging out with us. I'm assuming that's what it is because he could clearly go with anybody he chooses. Yeah. That's a great question, and I don't know. Don't know the answer.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I'm assuming that he's been at least pleased enough with the work we've done and hasn't had to send me to HR too many times. So I don't know what it is for sure, but yeah, he's been working with the same film editor. I think there is an understanding, and I think when you find people that you connect with, both on a personal level and a creative level, and it's working, you're kind of like, this is working. I don't necessarily need to change it up,
The Housemaid was a little different because it was, than kind of his other films. But comedically, we have the same sensibilities as Paul. He understands that we know when there's comedic timing and when things need to come out. And then not just in comedies though, but in The Housemaid as well.
Yeah.
Making sure that, we're all on the same page. And I think we get that with Paul. And I know Drew's been doing, back to, Spy and Ghostbusters, those movies too, which are challenging films, full on action, full on design in Ghostbusters.
The quieter films are usually harder to do.
Yeah.
As I'm sure you've talked to a number of people over the years, and something that's more realistic and grounded and stuff is a little bit harder to get design in. There's a lot of design in this film that goes unnoticed, which is perfect. When you watch the film from the beginning, it's just this beautiful house. It's, like, oh, what a great world, lovely, everything's perfect. It's, and so even the air tones we put in were light and not oppressive or anything like this. So the choices in birds, everything like that. And when Millie finally comes into this world, like the subtle clue that changes, that something is different, but you don't really pick up on it, is when the gates close, it's kind of almost a cellar door slamming shut behind them. You're locked in now, right? But you don't really notice it. It just seems a little stylized thing, a little moment. And as the film progresses, tones change. It gets darker. Instead of Tweety birds, we end up with crows. Darker. Everything's darker. You go to the attic, it's more compressed. It's, you're locked in. So all those subtle cues, help give you that sense of dread that you were mentioning earlier, and anticipation and fear, because, throughout the film, things shift and change. And you keep the audience guessing. There's a point in the film in particular where things really change. And from that point on, it's just a fun, what is going on? And sound helped with that a lot. And we worked with, we have to mention, Tim Alston did some great design work for us, tonally and stuff like that. And we were very fortunate because Paul, speaking of working with same people, Paul works with Teddy Shapiro as his composer. And Teddy gives us from the get-go, Teddy was scoring the film while Paul was shooting. He was like, give me, I want to have a theme. I want to have something in my head. We were fortunate enough to have Teddy's temp score in the track. So when we were designing things, because, tonally, those things can rub if they're not constructed together. So there's a ton of tonal elements in the design that, I think... I'm sure Teddy noticed, but I don't know that Paul may have noticed that. Is that score? Is this?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, because basically with sound, you're scoring the film with sound, And I think that was something that took me a good number of years to learn once I finally was in the supervisor chair, that I'm not just putting a door knock, because you can say, it's like, who's there? Or, same hand, same material. I just told you two different stories by the pacing, by the, the attitude. So you're scoring the film, and it's like any sound you put in the track should be telling you something, or no sound. Silence is brilliant, but you have to have sound to take away, to give you silence. So, so this film has a ton of sound design in it. And I think a lot of it probably goes unnoticed. There's the obvious stuff with teeth, So for those who haven't seen it, I don't want to give too much away, but,
And dishes.
Teeth, dishes, all sorts of things like that. But teeth was a big one. And I knew that was working. Go to a preview and you'd see people look away and they said, I still heard it.
That's the problem. I looked away as well. I have a teeth thing.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people do.
Yeah, you look away and it's worse.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. Yeah.
So you've kind of answered this question already, but I want to kind of go at it from a bit of a different angle. With psychological thrillers, the tone of the film sonically makes a big difference.
Completely.
So you have to build that over time. And as you just said, with changing the birds and all that kind of thing. Another example might be the first time that our character freaks out in the kitchen.
Right. Mm-hmm.
All those drawer slams and countertops, they're hypered.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And that changes the way you perceive everything entirely.
Correct. When you give that hyper-realistic, so door locks, things like that, big things like that, footsteps, creaks in the floors, certain elements. So you give you that hyper-realistic gives you the hair on the back of your neck kind of stand up because you're, accentuating those moments, obviously. And again, they work as long as you're not aware that it's happening. So it's easy for us to get away with it in the slam, and the close-ups allow us to make the door locks ridiculously loud, and the same thing with the teeth. I mean, because all of it's exaggerated, it's ridiculous, but it works.
It's not ridiculous in the context of
in
this
the
film,
context
though.
of the film.
And it's also, when we have the opportunities, Drew talks about not having sound. And so we're in a lot of places where we're really quiet and we're just hearing breaths and things like that, which giving us the opportunity, to have the dynamics in the film and to really, punctuate those things when we need to.
The foundation of any soundtrack is the dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And Sonny and I were thrilled when we were said, oh, he's shooting in a house. It was the noisiest sound we've had. I mean, and I mean, minus some superhero films where they've got Ritter fans blowing right at the actor, minus that or standing next to Niagara Falls, you cannot believe the sounds that were in this house. And you're like, what?
Yeah,
And
the floors were very, very creaky.
Huh.
And we knew this early on. Paul had kind of told us, hey,
it changed everything.
And so, it changed the feel of the house. And it's like we wanted to be able to have control of all that. But
Well, the house is a character.
It is. But so the problem is, though, it's one thing when the creaks are attached to a footstep that you see on screen. It's another thing when you realize that the film crew is moving and the sound guy is moving and, So there's those creaks, but in the film, I don't know if you noticed, there were more fireplaces in this one house than there are in 7 houses put together. And when you listen to one of those, when you record one and it's gas driven, it sounds like a F-14 Tomcat. You're just like, but the sounds in that place, I don't know why and how and what, why it was so loud. So there's intimate scenes that are happening, like say where you just want to hear the breath or you don't want to hear anything. We had to do this because there was such a little budget for this film. There was no time to pre-dub. Had we given the raw tracks to the mixer, to Nick Offord, who was our dialogue mixer, just the way they came to us, we would have cut them, obviously. Yeah. But had we not done the pre-cleaning, we never would have gotten through the mix. He was like, oh, well, let me hear the production. He's like, oh my God, okay, we're just going to go with this. And we're very, very anti anything that affects the quality of the voice, so we're very diligent about our cleaning process, and we pretty much only trust each other to do dialogue cleaning. Usually if someone cuts or does it for us, we're like, we'll redo it. That was such a big part of reconstructing this track, really, was the cleaning up the dialogue.
And being able to do those things that you're talking about, where it's like the drawers and the breaths post that, where he's, talking to, her about, having her, she just freaked out, and now then she leaves and the room is just, quiet, and all we're hearing is him and Millie, and that kind of awkward sexual tension that they have, So there's a lot of opportunities for that. And again, with the doors and walking up the stairs and
all the stairs. I mean, you knew locations by, bare footsteps on carpet, whether wood or whether it was, a hard surface. But, there were great moments too of, really fun design. Like when Nina she's retelling her story, and where she's drugged and collapsing and there's water flowing, and how we wanted to make sure that everything felt somewhat dreamlike, it flows. We tried not to have hard cuts unless they were used for emphasis. We tried to have things flow, backgrounds, everything kind of flow together, just in the storytelling. Because part of it,
flowing together, you mean with long fades?
Or just not making sure that when we are, not necessarily just fades actually, but more
tonal kind of
sounds that complement each other. Or?
Yeah. So example, like if we're going from interior exterior, a lot of times you'll hear, if you're realistic, it'd be more of a hard cut, but we would make sure that the the levels and frequencies blended. It wasn't really just a crossfade because they do shift, but we would try and make sure things don't bump as much at times, unless, again, we wanted them to. It depended when we were doing it, because when it was in the flashback sequences, it was a little more dreamlike. It was a little more, so we didn't want it to be stark. We wanted memories and fragments to be blending together. So
yes. Again, we're coming out of a certain sequence, and we're seeing her with the hair and feeling what she's doing. Real quiet there, and all we hear is her efforts and that she did with their hair. That. See, I know it's hard to not give away that.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
It's one of my next questions, actually, is
Okay.
because a hair being pulled out of your head is not really a sound out in the air. It's the sound you hear in your own head. But you guys got that sound. like that must have been, I'm assuming, took a little while to figure that.
Both Sandy and I had full heads of hair when this
Exactly.
film started. Actually, so we did Foley and sound effects and everything for that, and it's a mixture of both, but there was one shot where Amanda, God bless her, she's really pulled out a hair in production, and we used that one a couple of times because it made a little snap, and we're like, wow, that's really good. And you could see the pain on her face, too, when she did it. We're like, oh, that's a good one. So there's a mixture of pulling real hair, and then, whatever we did to enhance it here and there. So that's the thing. Like we had those fine details down to, smashing doors and whatever, pretty violent stuff. And I think that was the fun part too. And Paul likes things big, because there's times I said, that's really big. And Paul goes, plays great. And I'm like, it's pretty big, Paul. Like, we sat right here, and he'd like, okay. Paul goes, audience seems to like it. I'm like, and sure enough, go to a screening. I'm like, yeah, Paul's right.
Yeah, that slap that happens
Yeah.
is one and that scene is so great to watch with an audience, because
They're so happy.
they're so and that slap
that
comes.
slap-
Little do they know.
Yeah.
But that slap, literally, and it is straight out of Indiana Jones practically. The amount of low end and everything that's on that thing, it's like, it's a loud slap, but it all says, and we're like, Paul, that's pretty. And he goes, yeah, plays great. I'm like, okay, all right. And Brent, they're like looking at us, and Tony Lamberti, who was our effects mixer, we're all thinking, man, we're gonna have to turn in our union cards. This is it. They're gonna kick us out. The Academy's gonna say, what are you guys doing? And sure enough, but that's why I say Paul and Brett really know their craft, and and they pushed us to make things bigger and gorier. And
Yeah, there's some great. Some of my favorite sounds in the movie are some of in particular, the beating of the door
Yes.
from a few characters, but Tony did a great job encompassing us. We're looking at it on the screen, and we're seeing a face, and we're seeing hands on two sides. Really pounding those doors, and you feel it in the room. It's such a great, sound. There were great sounds there, and Tony did such a great job mixing it of the right amount of low end and wood, and it really feels. You can feel, many times the progression of the anger in our characters as they're beating on that door.
and the threat that is that
And
door going to
threat.
hold?
Yeah,
Is that door going to hold?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good stuff.
Well, it's not really the same of what you were saying. Of the quiet ones is harder because, like, the door is loud, but I don't want to say simple. Like, it's just a door. When you're designing a massive explosion of a mountain exploding, like that is weirdly simpler than how do we make this one non-moving prop progress over time?
Right. Well, as anyone would know, like that, because we all do this for a living, is that door was made up. I have 24 elements, and it's not just, here's a door knock. I mean, it's the cracking, it's the pounding, it's the low end sweeteners, it's the, there's the metal rattles, there's the, you name it. There's so many elements that make it up. It's a quiet film in that much of it is intimate and quiet, and and I think that part was. That part was the quiet, but you're right. It is. I think that's what was a little different for this one for me, was that it went from being a quiet film to really loud and dynamic at points.
Yeah.
I mean, the the head hitting the stairs on the way down was very, and Bodyland, all of that, pretty big stuff, and needed to have, we wanted that to be rhythmic and clean and distinct. And, so you knew what was hitting when and where, and that it was, pretty violent.
Yeah.
That's an amazing scene because it's 3 things all at once. It's 100 things all at once. But for me, when I was watching it, there's a release of tension.
Yeah.
There's that's really violent.
Yeah.
And then it's also funny at the same time. Like, it shouldn't be funny.
That's what you say. It's the weirdest film to say. It's a fun ride. Like, people get butchered. And,
this guy's head just bouncing off railing after railing. And
it's a good time for the kids. It's great. It's like, I know, right? I always felt weird saying, it's a fun ride. It's violent as hell, but...
Yeah, well, Paul's... a lot of that's Paul. It's
it reminds me of Spy.
Yeah, it's so, there's so many just great little laughs and things in there that, look, Paul's got a basis in those comedies. And so he's got a feel for that sort of stuff. So he brings that he did it in Simple Favor too. It's the same type of deal.
Thing. Yeah.
There's great tension in those movies and he still brings the comedy. And also, from an audience standpoint, it's that little release that you get as an audience member when you have a laugh, when you've been through some intense scene or something, and there's Paul's really good about that. It's fun ride. We'll see what he does with...
I know.
There's going to be a sequel, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
We don't know much about it, but other
and hopefully
than that,
Paul will invite us back.
Exactly. We obviously there's multiple books from Frida. So
look, Sonny and I haven't read much, so.
From what I hear. Yeah. But so there's opportunities there, and obviously, look, like you said at the beginning, this movie did fantastic in the theaters. I don't know if it was a big surprise. Look, it's got a built-in audience. It was a #1 bestseller, but I told this story to Paul. My mother, who lives in small town Newton, Kansas, it's got one theater. She told me, and I've been doing this for 20 plus years, and she's like, I'm gonna go see this movie. I'm so excited about it. I'm like, okay, get my mother, who's in a wheelchair, out of her house to go see a movie, and this is the one she goes and see, and that's
I know, right?
pretty exciting. So.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that there was a lot of noise inside the house. Did that lead to a lot of ADR, or did you have to clean that all up?
No, we salvaged a lot of that. And Paul, thank God Paul's not a fan of ADR, but no, we were able to salvage pretty much everything unless we needed to for, I think, creative, right?
Yeah,
creative choices.
There's not many loops for technical issues in this movie. We really did a really tedious job of cleaning and or finding alts and that sort of things, and even breaths, that sort of stuff. We really tried to keep all of that stuff. So it was a challenge, but it turned out great. I'm really proud of the track. I think it sounds great.
Yeah, it's got a rich track.
Thank you very much for talking to me about it today,
and
congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to the sequel.
Yeah, so are we.
The NAB Show is a major gathering for professionals across media, post-production, and broadcasting. In conjunction with the event, Sound Ideas is offering a limited-time NAB sale with 50% off its catalog of professional sound effects libraries. But you don't have to go to NAB to take advantage of this promotion. It's available to everyone right now. To learn more and explore the sale, go to sound-ideas.com. Tonebenders is produced by me, Timothy Muirhead. Theme music is by Jim Guthrie. You can reach me via email through info@tonebenderspodcast.com. Follow Tonebenders on Instagram to stay on top of new episodes. If you like the show, you can help us out by spreading the word to your friends and colleagues, or leave us a tip. Just go to tonebenderspodcast.com and click support.